Well, this week I have with me Neil Bibby, who is a List MSP for West of Scotland, but also Labour spokesperson on transport. So you've obviously been very busy this week, Neil, because rail services have been basically very topical.
Yep.
Commuters are screaming
Yes.
about the performance. So first of all, just want to ask you, so what have you been saying in the Parliament this week about this?
Well, we've been raising the concerns of passengers this week. We've been doing it for a number of weeks now because it's clear that Scotland's passengers are increasingly concerned about the level of delays, cancellations, overcrowding, skip stopping. There's a whole range of concerns that Scotland passengers have, and obviously improvements need to be made, and we've been calling on the Transport Minister to get a grip of this situation. We called for an emergency statement this week, and we're pleased that the Transport Minister and Scottish Government agreed to do that. We've also been calling for the Scottish Government to publish their full 250-point plan in full, and we've also today called on the Scottish Government to ensure that there's a rail fare freeze next year in 2017. We feel it's unfair on passengers to be paying more for a service that isn't up to standard.
Yeah. So let's start with the performance then. So do you think this is down to the Abellio contract specifically, or do you think there are underlying reasons why performance seems to be so bad at the moment? I mean, what's your theory about that?
I think there's a number of factors at play here. We've seen performance slip to, the latest statistics show 86% over the last 4 weeks. That didn't include the major incidents that we've seen over the last week. Clearly, there are issues with the infrastructure with the tracks, but there's also issues with the trains and the reliability of a lot of the trains.
So this 86%, so that means that only 86% of trains have arrived when they should do, and the rest haven't.
And that figure, 86%, is of trains that arrive within 5 minutes.
Right, so it could still be late.
Of target, yeah. There's actually a tougher criteria on the ScotRail website that will show you the arrival times to within 59 seconds.
So that's why Partick Station, which I would have an interest in, shows that only 40% of those trains arrived on time.
Yeah. And there's some cases, for example, Ardrossan, in my own region, there's only around 10% of trains are arriving within 59 seconds. So there's real issues right across the country. It affects the west of Scotland, where we represent in Glasgow, but there's issues in the borders and right across the country. And that's why we need to see this full improvement plan that the government have agreed with ScotRail. And it's important that passengers and Parliament sees the full extent of the changes that are proposed, because passengers are not getting the service that they need.
So obviously you've been on the front bench asking questions to the Transport Minister, Hamza Yousaf, this week. So some people have been saying, well, this is becoming a bit personal, and in fact it's a bit opportunist. So I just thought I'd like you to give a chance to respond to that.
Well, I heard what the Transport Minister's had to say. I mean, we have been attacking the Transport Minister on his record. The fact of the matter is, he said he's agreed an improvement plan with ScotRail, and since then train performance has got worse, and we'll hold him to account on his record over this. He's also, by his public comments on the issue, under pressures falling out with Abellio, Network Rail and the rail unions, so it's clear he has to get a grip on the situation. We are holding to him account on the basis of the promises that he's made. It's important that passengers can have confidence in him. Unfortunately, more and more passengers are losing confidence in him, but he has to turn things around. He needs to get a grip of this situation.
But this is how government works. The opposition put pressure on the government on behalf of people who are screaming out for a good service. And all Labour are trying to do here is ensure that the government are doing everything they possibly can.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Scottish Labour are standing up for Scotland's passengers. We're raising the concerns that people have, and there's been a number of issues recently. We called for overcrowding figures to be published, and we called for action on skip stopping, and there's going to be action as a result of that pressure. So the pressure that we've put on and other people have put on is having a positive impact here. We also put pressure on the improvement plan to be published, and that's going to be published now. And now what we're looking for is a fare freeze for 2017. Labour have called for that, and we're going to be putting pressure on the Scottish Government to deliver on that, and we think that will be, make a difference.
So that would mean, instead of the normal price increase for regulated fares, there would be a freeze, and that would be from 2017.
So in January, so in January 2017, rush hour fares will go up 1.9% as things stand, and other fares will go up 0.9%. And we're saying there should be a freeze on those rail fares. People I don't think passengers mind paying more if they're getting a better service, but clearly at the moment they're not getting a better service.
Do you think there's any chance that the government might respond positively to that?
Well, I certainly hope so. The ball is now in their court. Labour has said we should have a fare freeze on regulated fares that would cost around £2 million. That's not a huge amount of money. They need to enter negotiations with BLO and deliver fare freeze.
But it might just bring confidence back to the service.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you about the wider issues. What do you think is really wrong with the contract here? I mean, is it fair to say that there has been quite an improvement in capacity? And of course, rail's become a big choice of transport for many people.
Yeah.
What do you think are the underlying problems that Abellio have with this contract?
Well, as you say, there is more and more people using the railways, which is a good thing, which is is positive. But that's obviously put more and more pressure on ScotRail. Obviously there's a lot of challenges out there in terms of infrastructure and in terms of trains, their standard of performance, and there needs to be investment in the infrastructure and in the trains. But also there's issues as well, I think, about staff morale. We've heard the rail unions this week talking about staff morale being at rock bottom. Is there enough staffing on our railways? Is there enough resources there? And I think these are the sort of issues that there needs to be.
I actually think this is quite a big issue, is the staffing levels. I mean, just as a commuter, I know you travel by train yourself as well. I did notice that the change of contract between for ScotRail and Abellio, there were less staff about Waverley Station, less staff about in Glasgow stations. Now, I don't know if that's borne out by the figures, but I've certainly seen people struggle at these ticket machines, which often are not working, and there's no one about to ask. So,
because it's not just an issue of whether trains are overcrowded or late. There are issues about the ability to buy tickets, and there's lots of complaints about ticket machines being broken, lengthy queues at stations like Glasgow Central just to get out, to get out the station and get about your daily business. There's real concerns about that, and I think that the unions like the RMT have been raising concerns about the lack of second members of staff on trains, and there's a lot of trains that are only driver only, and that's obviously not providing a great service. But there's also implications then for disabled passengers getting on and off trains, and it's important. You
need staff for that.
And the key thing about a public transport system should be about accessibility and helping making sure people access the public transport system.
Lastly, I just wanted to ask you about the call that you made for a People's Railway. I've certainly supported the publicly run railway for a long time, but I recognise that it still has to have high performance and high capacity. Do you think it can work better? What's your view? Well,
we believe that public transport should be run in the interest of the public, and there should be a publicly owned People's ScotRail that puts passengers before profits, and allows those profits to be reinvested back into the network. The Transport Minister said he's holding a meeting next week to discuss with other parties how we take that forward, and we're happy to engage with that.
But he's talking about a public sector bid, which would be different than a publicly run railway, I guess, because you have to compete with the private sector to do that.
So we're happy to engage with him on how we take forward a People's ScotRail. In addition to that, though, I think we need to look at the issues of an operator of last resort. Should the Abellio franchise fail?
Yes, a safeguard.
Because obviously if that fails, then the government and Transport Scotland will need to step in. So we need to ensure there's a proper plan in place there, that should the Abellio franchise fail, that we can run the railways properly. Yeah. And
there's lots of other real issues. The issue that I've been campaigning on, which you've been helping me with, is that 16-year-olds should get the chance to pay a child fare when they turn 16. I've recently found out this week that it's possible to amend the franchise for whoever is running it. But I know you're supportive of that, and just take this opportunity to thank you for your support on that.
Well, absolutely. I think we need to see a freeze on all rail fares next year, but in addition to that, Scottish Government should be actively looking at how we make things fairer for rail passengers, particularly those in the 16 to 18 year category.
Well, I know you're speaking in the chamber, so thank you very much.
Cheers.